We are coming in. Hi. I don't know where we see if people are coming in, but that's okay. I'm going to assume they are. Just wait.
Everyone, come in.
I see someone in the chat.
Hi, Leah. Hi, Caitlin. There we are. Hello, Jamie. Maya. The gang's all here.
There we go. That's what I love to see. First thing in the morning, a chat blowing up.
California's in the house. Look at that. Good morning. Chile. Awesome. Vermont. All right. Well, everyone.
Oh, someone from the UK for you, James. Look at that.
There. Representation.
Those kind of people.
There we go. And the Netherlands, we got global reach right here. I love it.
Got a bit of funny Netherlands.
Kan je ook Nederlands praten?
Een beetje, dat is heel zwak.
Wisconsin, South Africa.
South Africa, now that's why people, I lived there for 10 years. Hi, Lynette.
Awesome. Well, shall I kick it off, friends? Think so. All right. Well, welcome everyone to today's live webinar, the new SEO Playbook and how AI is reshaping search and content. I'm so thrilled that you're all here because this is such a hot topic right now, and the timing couldn't be more timely. My name is Lynn Ho, and it's with great pleasure to be your host today and moderator. We have a packed house, international packed house, as well as a powerhouse of speakers. But before we get into all the goodness, let me just go through a few housekeeping items. First, I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions. Feel free to post your questions in the Q&A chat box on the lower right-hand corner. Those questions will be answered at the end of the webinar. This webinar will be recorded and sent to all the registrants as a follow-up after this webinar. And then finally, of course, remember to take the survey at the end and help us do a better job the next time. All right, let's jump right into it. So AI is changing the rules of engagement. Organic search is slipping. Keyword strategies that worked just a year ago seems to not work or not cutting it anymore. So now what, marketers? That's exactly what we're going to unpack today. And we've brought together a powerhouse of panelists and experts to help you navigate with this shift. We have from Sumo Logic, Zoe Hawkins, Director of Content Marketing and Integrated Campaign. Love the wave, Zoe. James McCormick from the UK, from IDC, Director of Digital Experience and Principal Analyst. And our very own Siteimprove, Jeff Coyle, our SVP and Head of Strategy for SEO, also co-founder of Market Muse. And again, my name is Lynn Ho, and I will be your moderator today. All right, let's get right into it. James, I'm going to turn it right over to you so you can jump right into the content.
Oh, thank you very much, Lynn. It's great to be here. As Lynn mentioned, I'm head of research at IDC around all things to do with content and experience, the strategies, the technologies that we need as marketers, and the whole enterprise to be successful with digital engagement. So it's obviously a perpetually hot topic. And particularly over the last few months, the one theme that has come up again and again is my conversations with CMOs and digital leaders in that AI-powered consumer proxies are no longer hypothetical. They are here, and they're already reshaping how brands are engaging with engaging online. And tools like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and many others are evolving into what I'm naming for the purpose of this discussion. And there's a number of different names we'll use for them. I'm going to be naming them generative search engines or generative search agents. I'll kind of use them interchangeably. But whatever they call, these autonomous tools are now acting on behalf of individuals, filtering content, comparing options, and in many cases, directing purchase decisions. This is what's super important and interesting to a lot of us, right? And at IDC, we believe that within the next few years, this will become a dominant form of digital engagement, and it marks a major shift from marketing directly to humans to now including marketing to influence AI agents that represent them. Conceptually, it's a major shift. And as these agents evolve into fully fledged digital avatars, They're fast becoming the new gatekeepers of attention, preference, and spend. And that presents a critical dual challenge for CMOs. First of all, you'll need to optimize your algorithmic engagement with these machines, and then reignite the human side of your brand in the few touch points that they will reach out directly to. What's most striking is just how fast this change is unfolding. And at the end of last year, let me just get to my next slide. Can you see that? Excellent. So at the end of last year, efforts to market to these agents weren't even on most CMOs' radar. Just 8 months ago, at the end of last year, we surveyed over 500 marketing leaders at IDC, and back then, SEO topped the list of the most effective marketing method. But look, no generative engine optimization, no optimization against these tools, nowhere in sight, and marketing to AI agents simply wasn't on the radar. So fast forward to now, it is fast becoming one of the biggest strategic imperatives for growth-focused brands. So let's take a closer look at these disruptive tools. Now, there's plenty others, and we'll discuss that. But first, it's important to clarify what we mean when we're talking about these generative engine searches or agents, whatever you want to call them. We're talking about tools like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and many others are in that emerging category. And right now, as I said, I'm referring to generative search engines, but it's not a universally agreed term. In fact, terminology is still evolving. I was just talking to Jeff just before the call. Common terms today include things like AI chatbot. That's about a third of people use that. Chatbot, 20% of people. Conversational AI, about 15%. And large language models, generative AI, virtual assistants, AI assistants, digital assistants, AI overview tools, you name it. They're all kind of being kind of used. And so on this slide, I've highlighted some of the leading tools that, as of now, that we are using, but this landscape is moving fast, and expect this to kind of change significantly over the years ahead, in the coming months and years, actually. So, for instance, ChatGPT, from the standard way that we kind of look at these terms, of course, Google has a model that kind of disrupts us a bit, but ChatGPT accounts for about 50% of all AI source referrals to website traffic at the moment. Perplexity, about a third. Google's Gemini in the standard form, whether it's AI mode, contributes roughly about 17%, and the others make up about 2%. But these stats are something I picked up last week. They could be changing. But why are we talking about these tools now? Let's have a look. Whoops, I went too far ahead. There we go. So, as an industry analyst, it's a privilege to speak regularly with buyers, users, and suppliers of these digital technology. But what is rare is witnessing a disruption as sharp and as fast-moving as the rise of these engines. And back in 2024, the potential of these tools was clear, and they were certainly an important part of many of my conversations. But since around March this year, this topic has kind of dominated just about every discussion I've had. And a few key facts from these conversations have really stood out. So traffic from Gen AI search engines has exploded to around 150%, 1,500% increase since about July last year. And since March this year, this has translated into about 10% of originating traffic for some brands, and as much as 25%, if not higher, for others. So this is no longer speculative. It's a structural shift in how digital traffic flows, how consumers discover brands, and how marketers need to respond. So let's dig a little deeper into these changes. So there's three significant impacts. There's others as well, but there's three that consistently rise in my particular conversations, particularly with digital leaders. First of all, the traffic patterns are shifting. We can see whilst some brands are seeing overall traffic pattern dip, they're also seeing a increase in the quality of that traffic. Essentially, what these tools are doing is sending visitors who are far more informed and much closer to a decision point, often landing directly on a deep product or service page, and a few, are landing on purchase pages and are exhibiting very high intent, as I mentioned. Secondly, traditional SEO tactics are not good enough on their own. They are still critical, and we need to be really good at it. But keyword first, headline hacking, backlinking approaches aren't nearly enough. What these large language models really value is consistency of messaging, authority, and depth of the content. And it also means optimizing not just for Google, but also the expanding ecosystem of Perplexity, ChatGPT, etc. And brands need to think more like publishers. They need to invest in durable, high-quality content and ensure their sites are fully accessible to AI crawlers. So that you can see why there's a few brands that are really well placed, regardless of this transition. But the rest of us need to do that. So the next, we're starting to see the rise of what I'm referring to as large language optimization tools. These tools are designed to help brands understand how they're showing up in AI-generated responses and how to improve on that. But one key takeaway I will say that's coming out of all my discussions is don't block the AI crawlers that you want to view your site. It's going to be a precision practice coming up because there's going to be whole business models around that. But for the time being, don't block those crawlers, especially if you want to be seen in conversations. But what does this mean for our traditional funnels? So, it's fracturing, right? The traditional funnels fracturing from what we kind of typically see it on the left-hand side to where it is I'm seeing on the right-hand side. And we're getting shifting versions of a fractured funnel that looks like that right-hand side. And using these tools or agents or search engines or AI search engines, whatever we want to call it, the buyers are skipping directly to early stage, are skipping the top of the page, early stage branded content and landing directly on product pages, support articles, or even, as I mentioned, order screens. And the shift means that site structures no longer guide the journey. You might, we as site designers create this beautiful flow through the website and create a lovely customer experience with that website. But sad to say that the influence of that is now waning as these external agents basically dictate how users will enter and actually drive through the website. And these generative engines prioritize fact-based, structured, and current content, as I mentioned, and not the homepage design or a campaign flow. So the call is clear: brands must adapt and adapt fast. So before Lynn kicks me off and I have to hand over to Zoe, I want to just wrap up by sharing 3 action items that I'm seeing some of these successful brands that I'm talking to, what they're actually doing today. So firstly, they're making the content AI ready, but they're focusing on the top 5 to 10% of the content that really matters, things like product pages, pages that emphasize differentiation, FAQs, that kind of thing. They're not just focusing on SEO anymore. They're thinking about the structure of the content and in the way that these AI tools can consume it and understand it. And it means focusing on things like technical things like schema markup, clear, non-generic headings that aren't clickbait, QA formats, and avoiding hidden content and things like JavaScript, for instance, is going to be super important. And so the goal is quite simple. They need to make sure AI can read it, trust it, and serve it. Secondly, these leaders are connecting their data and experience layers and technology, and they are combining things like their product information management or the product experience management tool with the content tools like their CMS tools or even their DXP that provides that consistent brand, product, and engagement experience across that entire customer lifecycle from brand discovery all the way through to product consumption. And they're keeping the content fresh. Thirdly, they are operationalizing visibility. What do I mean? So in order to show content that constantly shows up in these engines, it's important that they treat these initiatives as a cross-functional effort. So it's not just a marketing job. As you can see from some of the stuff I've talked to ahead, it involves IT, it involves the content folks, and of course it involves the SEO folks, it involves the data teams all working together. So it's definitely an enterprise activity. So with that, I'm going to hand over to you, Zoe, to share your thoughts.
Awesome. I really just wanted to hear your walk-off music, but I don't think Glenn got that organized to play you off the stage.
What music should we?
What can I play? What can I play? Leave it alone, James. No, teasing. Awesome kickoff. I love it. Love to see kind of that market, high-level view. Hi, everyone. I am Zoe Hawkins. I lead all things content at Sumo Logic, which is a cybersecurity and reliability company, B2B, SaaS, tech. So all the things about B2B versus B2C. I'm happy to talk about that in the chat some more. But let's get right into it. So, content that fuels AI and SEO success. I think, I feel like every couple of years, or maybe it's a February vibe. I don't know what it is, but I feel like every year I see this debate come up of like, is content still a thing? Does content still matter? In this age of ChatGPT, does content mean what it used to mean? All of that sort of stuff. So every year we have the same conversation. And every year I kind of come back with a similar vibe around, this is where you get to show your unique view. Having content that you create, having your own content channels. This is where you're able to do everything from defining terms and explaining the industry to really positioning your organization's perspective as unique and valuable. And a big part of that is controlling that narrative and having the opportunity to share that perspective yourself. And a big thing around that is building trust. So if you're not out there saying what you think, feel, believe, your organization isn't really saying anything that people can resonate with or disagree with. I mean, I think not everyone belongs in your tribe. And so I think content is a big piece of showing where you align yourselves, what your perspective is, and getting that out there. So, plus, it feeds Google and AI. So, that feels really exciting that we get to generate this content. We get to put it out into the world, share our perspective, and then Google and the search engines and all of these AI experiences, whatever you want to call them, because we had a conversation earlier about what we even want to call it. But these AI experiences, whatever they may be, are fed by the content. Unfortunately, it often feels like Little Shop of Horrors. Sometimes it just feels like it's sucking us dry and feeding on us and not really giving us much back. Also, I'm determined to make this the theme throughout the rest of this presentation. So you'll just see lots of my Little Shop of Horrors jokes while Jeff is talking in the chat. So just be prepared. So the reality is that just like in Little Shop of Horrors, it needs us. It needs to feed on us. The search experiences, the AI experiences rely on content. And this goes back to what James was saying about needing fresh content. If the search engines, if the AI start feeding out to the public, stale, outdated information, anything that users can't trust or rely on, they're going to stop using those tools. So the search, this is why Google values freshness of content so highly. They need to look good. They need to look like they're not serving up results from 5-10 years ago. And so the search engines and the AI, I say chatbots, I mean, that's already out of date. Sorry. AI experiences, agents, whatever comes next, all of that is feeding on your content. And too often, I think we view it, it almost becomes a toxic relationship. It almost becomes like, we're giving it and we're hoping that maybe we get some crumbs in return. I love in the chat, like AI giveth and taketh away. I mean, we get that thing of feeling like, are we going to just give and give and give and never get any love back? But, there is that chance to still rank well, to still show up in AI and to get back from that relationship, at least as much as you're putting in. So, okay, we've talked a little bit about how to do it. So we say I always joke, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I've been doing SEO and content marketing for long enough to be like, oh, this is like 2019. This is like 2016. Like we can kind of roll back the clock and date ourselves as much as we like. But there are some things that remain true. So things like authority and topical relevance. We can focus on what you do best as an organization. This is where you're going to be the most believable, the most trustworthy, and have something unique to say. I mean, now with all of these AI experiences, anyone can churn out an article about any topic. What is it that you bring to the table that's unique and useful and helpful? And part of that is also what makes it human. So what is your unique human experience that the AIs can't mine from us, that make it that your content resonates with other humans and robots who read your work? And then I will say this over and over again. You need to say things in a way that sound like you. This is where, we talk about brand becoming more and more important. Brand voice, brand tone is a big part of that as well. You can't just sound like everybody else, because right now I feel like everybody sounds like ChatGPT, and my LinkedIn is filled with like the M dash is a sign of AI and, all of that. But for me, it's every time I see someone start an article with in an ever evolving digital landscape, or there's some sort of rapid evolving something landscape, ChatGPT was in there. But yeah, so we all start to sound the same. And so this is where brand voice, this is where tone and your own unique perspective and writing style is so important, and helps you show up in these AI experiences, because they don't want to feed everyone the same content that sounds the same. They want to be able to learn new speech patterns and new ways of presenting themselves. And so, this is a big part of that as well. And getting third parties to reference you. So it's not enough for you to say nice things about you. You really need to get other people to say nice things about you as well. Okay, cool. But really how? Like, we all know best practices, cool, sounds good, but like, what does that actually mean? And so one of the big things that I do is finding the content gaps that are holding things back. And I'm a big believer in quick wins. Like when my marketing leaders are like, what are we doing to show up for blah, blah topic? I'm like, I got you. And I'm able to find those pieces that maybe used to rank really well and have fallen, or those things that are just within striking distance reach. Those kinds of things give you the quick wins that you need to build your credibility internally so that you can expand into a bigger project, because this is a big project. I don't know about all of you, but like I have over 1,000 blogs on my website, like some of them dating back to like 2015, 2014. I'm like, oh gosh, this is the before times. So anytime I find these old blogs, like sometimes they still have SEO juice. Like sometimes people are still landing on this page, and I'm like, okay, we really need to update this. Like this doesn't reflect who we are anymore, but Google still thinks it's relevant, and it is still relevant. It's still valuable insight into a topic, but look at how much better we could do if we update this. So I think that's one of those things, is identifying those pieces that are, whether it's within striking distance or within a topic cluster that you care about, kind of identifying those pieces can sometimes be the biggest hurdle. And really, I cannot say this enough. You need to focus on your impact and like what juice is worth the squeeze. I would love to update every single piece on my website all the time and have everything super fresh. But there are some things that matter more to the business. And there are also some things where we have the authority that we can move the needle. So when someone says like, we want to suddenly rank for like best cybersecurity provider 2025, I'm like, do we? Or do we want to be like cybersecurity, SIM log, best SIM log cybersecurity company, something like that. Like finding your sweet spot, finding that area where you have the authority, where you could update that page and it would be personally easier than your competitor. That's really where you're gonna make the biggest impact. And finding those opportunities to beat the competition. Like we don't exist in a vacuum. No company does. Everybody is either competing against people doing things themselves or other solutions in the space. And so having a sense of what that search result looks like and who you're actually competing against can make a huge difference. And then my big thing is like optimizing with confidence. So, I often feel like we talk about content optimization and making something fresh, and you put it out into the world and you're like, well, let's hope. And so, I'm a big believer in using tools that help you have that confidence and that delight when you're updating, that you can say like, okay, I checked the boxes. I did all the things. I have the full like semantic relevance that I need for this stuff to rank. So what does that look like for me? So, I've been a longtime user of MarketViews, which is now Siteimprove. Thank you for inviting me on your webinar. And so when I use the tool, I usually see a 4 to 10x improvement in rankings with those pieces that have been optimized. And the big thing I really want to hone in on here, 4 to 10x sounds like the big number. So we can absolutely talk about that. But for me, the big win internally is a 20% increase within the quarter. I feel like so often it's like, go make this change and hope that Google and hope that the AI pays attention. In actual fact, like you can do something that has an impact within the quarter so that you can go back to your leaders and be like, look, you wanted this, I did this, here's what's already happening. Like, yes, you'll get your 4X, your 10X results over the course of the rest of the year. And that's magical. And I love that for all of us. But like, it's those quick experiences that I feel like make or break the project in the beginning. In terms of how long it takes to do this, so this is finding like the full process, identifying the piece, determining where you're going to have the biggest impact, making those changes, finding backlinks, reworking a piece, all of that from the content professionals on my team takes about an hour per piece. So, I mean, if that kind of helps put into perspective, like using the right tools can help streamline that experience and then ultimately save you time just in terms of like how long it takes your team to focus on updating and refreshing this content. I feel like sometimes this idea of like, how are we going to show up in search? How are we going to show up in AI? Sounds like it's going to be all day, every day you're working on this. It doesn't have to be. Like your team can get a lot done in a relatively short amount of time and save apparently $36,000 in automating those tasks. This does not include how much additional revenue you're going to make from having content that ranks. And I'm happy to talk about that in the Q&A. But I feel like that's one of these pieces is like, this is just talking about your team's time, energy, and resources. So I don't think I'm getting music playing me off the stage. Lynn, I think I made it in time. So I'll hand it over to Jeff.
Thanks so much and great insights. It's so great to hear the details. Many of the questions that have come in, by the way, fantastic questions, I hope to get to right now in my part of this discussion. But the detail-oriented way that you analyze content, understanding cluster quality, and then make prioritize decisions for what to update, and then when do I need to take an extra leap and create? That's the key. It's understanding level of effort before you get started, right? So there's a couple questions in here about when do I start using generative AI and AI in my content strategy process? It's as early as possible. Use your analytics before you're even starting research. You should know where you have strengths and weaknesses. And when you can fill those gaps and say, I confidently know I need to create 5 articles and update 6, that's a budget that gets approved, right? That's not just hearsay. You're using real data. You understand where you have personalized value, where you have authority, and you can take those steps more effectively. But now we're going to talk about closing gaps, AI search. So the way that we think about AI search readiness is it's broken down in readiness, right? Is your content, is your site able to be ingested by AI, right? In the old world, we're looking at crawl, index, and search. Now, if it's just a large language model and it's ingesting to build that model, you're looking at ingest, chunk, synthesize, all of these other steps, right? So you want to make sure that your content, the way that it's being seen by the AI, the large language model crawlers, or those processes is the way that you think it is. Understanding your logs, understanding when they're visiting you, how they're visiting you. To the question in the thing I put important on it, by the way, we can tag your questions. It was site structure matters less for users. Surely it's important for AI bots themselves. Yes, they need to understand how your site is structured in order to attribute associations between those pages and in order to pull the right pages into when they do retrieval augmentation, right? Because imagine you're using the LLM and you're querying. The reasoning model may say, oh, I actually need to go look at that website. I need to go search during that process. So these are the steps that you can't necessarily predict, but it does contribute to your site's structure. It has to be ready to be indexed. It has to be ready to be ingested. And it has to be on demand when that language model or that user experience needs to request that page. The next would be traffic. Do you understand how to manipulate your analytics so that you can see traffic from these AI sources, right? A lot of times people are forgetting this. They're getting very focused on, am I being mentioned? Am I controlling the narrative? They're not saying, am I actually getting any traffic from this right now? Why am I not getting the traffic from this? Then you look at brand and citation visibility. And I'll expand this to say brand, topic, and citation, because I may want to control the narrative on a particular topic, or a topic that I own the category for? How frequently is my brand being cited in a pool of potential prompts? And then for things like AI overviews or AI mode, where it's a hybrid query prompt, is my brand being used as part of the list of queries, list of citations? I need to know that, because not all queries have citations in large language models. Some of them do, but they have very small presence. Some of them have prominent citations, like an AI overview, where they have the currently hit the little paper clip you can click on, and then also a right rail. So understanding where you would appear, understanding that you want to track a particular set of brands, a particular set of topics, and then you want to know which pages are cited, and then of that, what's generating traffic. And to the previous question, I love the funnel slide that was shown earlier. Why? Because we're also seeing a lot more type-ins, right? Because they've read about your brand in AI search and AI search experiences, and then they're saying, oh, I need to go check out Sumo Logic, right? They'll type in sumologic.com. You don't have direct attribution there. So you have to do some correlation and understanding that the higher that visibility metric is, and the more control of the narrative you have, that relates directly to some brand lift. So how important is your homepage? Extremely important, because you're getting those type-ins for people who are learning about your brand through that research experience, right? So all old things are new again. PR, brands, branding, traditional marketing becomes extremely important, because when you have that brand affinity, just like they used to say, right? If you're paying for ads in PPC and you're appearing in organic, click-through rates go up, right? Now, do they already know your brand? Well, they're getting reiterated confidence and credibility from that LLM response, more likely to go visit that site. How are they going to visit that site? Search for your brand, looking for brand queries, looking for brand clicks. All those things you need to know to understand, are you ready to operate in an AI search world? So things to get into, which there were some great questions about how I should involve this in content strategy. These are the steps that I see work with large content teams. And I saw there was some government entities in here, enterprises asking these questions. This is how you break those silos. This is how you get, why is this important? Through the pikes, where you have editorial teams who say, I don't want to use AI. Well, you say, I don't want to use AI irresponsibly either. I want us to be visible. I want our brand to control their narrative. So I want to enhance the human and AI collaboration within my organization. So I want to modernize these processes, ensuring that where it's responsible and where these things can be input, I want my brand style, tone, and voice involved as early in the process as possible. I want your personal experience as an editor for this company to be involved in those AI interactions. I want your, if you have a marketing analytics team, or you have a data science team, or a team that's doing market research, or maybe they have analyst research rights, from an IDC, right? And I want to drag that into my brief. Make sure that we call out those 5 facts that were surfaced in that survey. I want to bring that in as early as possible, because I forget who asked the question. I think it's Patrick in the audience before. That's how you bring unique differentiated value. That's how you add value. It's by knowing that I should reference the IDC research study. It's by having someone that has 12 years experience as an editor in my organization and has spent that time with the C-suite interviewing them. That allows you to maintain and showcase your brand. When you audit critically and you audit those pages, you should audit those pages and say, is this page bringing unique special value? Is it showing value that only my site could bring? Is it content that only I could build? If you can answer those questions confidently, the head of editorial wants to work with you, right? What they don't want to work with is the garbage article that anyone could have written. And guess what? For AI search, if you think about AI overviews, right? It is, I'm telling you, a little bit more detail than I thought I was going to, but you're searching. It's analyzing the query. It's determining what other queries should be used. That's called the query fan out, right? It's looking at all those candidate pages, and then it's deciding, should I synthesize this considering one factoid? What's the capital of North Dakota, right? And then it's saying, what other information should I bring together? Or is it saying, this is a more complex query. I need to deliver more information. I need to deliver unique, differentiated value. I need to deliver a mixture of experts' perspectives, right? That diversity, when you're in a query like that, yields greatness for you when you're bringing unique value with your content. What does it need to certainly be is authentic, especially in your money or your life zones, healthcare, insurance, financial services. But frankly, everyone today should be caring about this, even if you're, selling tractors or, you're selling your online courses for $60 a month on AI overviews, right? You got to be authentic. So what about your content is telling the story of expertise, and is that being exhibited? And the cool thing about this is content's back. Everybody says content was king, content was queen, right? Writing great content, being a fantastic editor, those fundamentals, the things everyone learned when they were trying to be an editor, they're trying to be in journalism school. If you've got those fundamentals, you can advance these workflows and you can advance these processes quicker than everybody. And you got to include, when should I include AI? Every single step you can, but you got to do it responsibly. Here's a little tip, a little thing that I put together. This is a checklist of things to consider at every step of the content creation journey. You've got it. Does this page have a point of view? I'm not going to go through everything, but you should be asking yourself, does this page have its own point of view? Is it illustrating expertise? Is there room for a personal experience? If you're reviewing beer, and I can't tell after I read it whether you drank any of that beer, not a good article, by the way, all over the place in that world. But you should, that personal experience should be clear. What does it mean? Do you need pictures? Maybe in your space you do, maybe not. Maybe you need some unique expertise. Maybe you need quotes from amazing experts like zoning, right? Get the details in there so you can illustrate that expertise. Structural differentiation, always great, and structural clarity. Bulleted lists. Remember I said it was ingest, chunk. It means AI needs to chunk your articles into pieces, understanding how that works. And does your content lend itself to chunking, right? That's what you got to be thinking about. Well, I love that high five there that I just got, because yes, I love that point too. All right. And so take this along. This needs to be at every step. And then think through readiness. Everyone should be able to view your website. Everyone that's AI, everyone that's human, not just some people, not just some AI, right? Everyone. You make sure that website is accessible for all users. Gives you the highest possibility of performing when they actually do get to your website. Building authority. What does that mean? Breadth and depth of coverage. I always say it's like a crossword puzzle. Cross and down. I need to go across. I need to go down. I need to understand what my competitors are doing, not to copy them, not to dial one number higher, but so that I can really trump card them with unique, valuable experiences where they have great stuff too. If they have great stuff, I've got to go far, far and away greater, especially if I'm a small company or I don't have as much authority. I need to tell the story that all I do is live and breathe SEO on my website. Those content items have to be amazing. If I want to write an article about log file analysis, it better be better than anything you possibly find on the internet, right? It better show that I live and breathe reading through logs, and I've got real examples and real experiences telling the story that only people who would have been in that situation would know, right? It always tells a story. I remember there was an image on a site that I worked with, and for me, it looked great because I wasn't an expert in that area. But I had two experts on the call, and they go, that's not actually how you use that. The person's holding the device wrong. Whoa, right? I would have never known that because I had never held that device because they live and breathe in it. They would never show an image of someone using that device wrong. You've got to make sure that's authentic, right? And you got to maintain editorial clarity. You got to maintain editorial integrity, brand and voice enforcement, content governance, features. If you have a page that's off brand, it's as bad as it being off topic, because Google, all the search engines, and as we get closer to having lowest cost possible evaluation of content at scale, we have site level authority metrics, we have site level quality metrics. Well, we know whether these pages are off brand as much as we know whether they're off topic. So we need to drive differentiation, detail clarity, and ensure that we are sticking to the story of our brand, driving content governance throughout. So my takeaways here: we've got to use AI-driven insights every stage of the content creation lifecycle, every stage of the content optimization lifecycle, both so that we can justify our work and we can make sure that when we do publish or refresh content, we're making it as amazing as possible, and we're making it such that it's breaking silos along the way. We want those editorial leaders to want to work with us, right? We want to make sure that they talk to us and say, hey, should I do something a little different here? This is what I had in mind, right? Bringing those two teams together drives hidden demand. It drives revenue wins. Building topical authority predictably is critical. You got to have personalized metrics here. So many of the software out there are driving generic metrics, even in AI visibility. It's how are they choosing the queries they put in, right? Are they doing one query? How likely is that query going to influence your outcomes, right? You want to be winning the entire topic. You want to be winning the entire cluster. Right? Oftentimes, that's not just knowing that you're on visible in 15% of someone's random keyword list. You got to make sure that that word list represents the cluster you care about. Make sure you have that control, but make sure you're also getting predictive insights for difficulty. And they can't just do predictive insights for difficulty by telling you how to copy your competition. I know that's unfortunate, but that's the industry, right? We all know if we're using one of those tools, right? Make sure that you're doing predictive insights for difficulty by understanding your site. They would have had to have crawled your site. They would have had to understand your structure in order to know that your site is going to rank really well if you just write one amazing article. Someone else's or a brand new site, it's going to take an entire section of their site or 40 articles. I was just talking to an editorial team 2 days ago, and I told them they needed to write 56 articles on a particular topic. They did not want to hear that. They're like, I'm not writing 56 articles about that topic, right? But I was like, you have to. And you got to go back in time to things you probably think are stale, but an expert would have covered that. Why? Because that's how you tell the story of expertise. Quality content tells the story. And it's not just because content is king. Write your great, long form guide. It's because that tells the story. You understand the entire journey. You understand the entire funnel, and you understand your audience. It's really easy now to repurpose content to speak to various personas and audiences, right? Build one page that's amazing, illustrates expertise, and you can morph it for various channels. You can morph it and use it for your webinar. You can morph it, combine it with a transcript, right? Think of yourself as an alchemist for AI, and that's how you're going to win with AI search. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to our Q&A, but first, Siteimprove sponsoring this webinar. We are the most comprehensive marketing performance platform. We're the only unified platform that covers digital accessibility and governance, brand compliance, digital experience analytics. We have our own analytics in-house. You're not just plugging in something you don't like using anyway. Search and performance marketing, SEO, keyword monitoring, content blueprint AI, which is near and dear to my heart, which is a human in the loop AI briefing solution that gives you level of effort estimates when you're building content plans. How much content should we build this week, this month on this topic? We answer that confidently, and we give you that content confidence along the way. On to the Q&A. Almost on time, but hopefully that was...
I wanted to hear the clubhouse music. Come on.
Getting close there. Thinking, well, what music should I play for Jeff?
Thank you all. And thanks for the clap. When the speaker's speaking, by the way, and you see these hearts and these claps, it's like fuel for a person like me. So I'm really
love it.
I'm asking for heart. I love it. All right.
There we go. Come on, people, smash the emojis. Let's make it happen.
Well, we have a ton of questions. So we do have the next sort of 15 minutes to go through questions, and we have more questions than we have time. But I have looked at there's a lot of questions around, and I'll push this through so that you all can see the questions as well. And by the way, while we go through the Q&A, there's a little QR code here on the slide. Feel free to get in touch with us. With the Siteimprove team, if you want to get a follow-up or just a demo view of what Jeff's been talking about and Zoe's been talking about. So the first question from Maddie, thank you for the question. Do you have any guidance or suggestions on tracking how our brand shows up within AI or GEO?
I'll answer that question just because I'd like to answer it conceptually, right? There are many solutions out there that are looking at individual topics or individual queries, right? And you're saying, is your brand appearing in that search, that specific search? There's a lot of options saying whether that one and done situations. We should be thinking about also understanding whether you are cited in that search, if citations are present. And then is it just really one query that you care about? So some of the work that I'm doing is kind of beginning to predict the fanning out that's behind the scenes, because that's very important here too. But yeah, you want to be thinking about first, is your site being ingested, right? are you getting any traffic? That's going to be a signal, right, of citations. And then for topics or queries that you care about, not just them, but the words around them, look at them all in a bucket, but make sure it's all stuff you really care about. Sometimes the buckets that are provided to you, some of it's relevant, some of it's not. So make sure you can really control those clusters. So building a collective cluster analysis, and then checking that. I like to do it with my content plans. I have a cluster that I'm focused on. I'll look at just those to see whether I'm included, and then I'll go back and check after I publish the content. But don't let someone else define your clusters for you. Don't let someone else define what your market industry is for you. You got to have that control, or else you can get a little bit misguided on there. But that's a really tough question, and it's evolving tremendously. And the other thing I'll keep this short is some of these situations. I'll keep this short. Zoe just laughed at me. If it's just an LLM responding out of the model, right? That's different than if the LLM used reasoning and had to go search the web or look at your site. And it's different than if it's a RAG system like Perplexity or AI Overviews or AI Mode, right? So it's 3 different balls of wax, 3 different approaches. So you make sure that you're, that you got to be in, Bing to be in this control. You have to be in Google, maybe not for this query, but for the fanned out query to appear in AI Overview. Just keep that in mind. You have pages that aren't ranking on the query. They can appear in AI Overview, but it's not just because Google is doing it differently. It's because they're searching for a bunch of other queries that you just don't know about yet. All right. So keep all those things in mind. Great question.
Yeah, I'll just maybe give the analyst top-down kind of approach. And, we talked about GEO, and there's a word in there, optimization, which essentially is kind of circular in nature, which is we do stuff, we execute, and then we measure, and then that measurement we use to then decide whether what we're doing is correct. And I would say that the GEO is, and to Jeff's point, and I think the points we made, is very immature in its process. There's a couple of things that still need to be resolved, like the commercial models of these AI search engines and the kind of what they're going to do, like things like paid search. What does that look like in this space, right? And their relationships with brands to enable those brands to then see, to answer the question, which is, how often, in high fidelity answer, how often am I showing up in particular types of queries, etc. That stuff is still being resolved, and at IDC we're expecting that's going to take a year or 2 to kind of the commercial models to already be resolved. And it's actually going to be super interesting. It's going to be far more than kind of search kind of commercial models. It's going to be something else. But so that's no, I don't think anybody on this call is pretending that this practice is going to remain static for the next couple of months or even years, right? It's changing very, very quickly.
On the nose, this is changing a lot because these companies are going to have to make a lot more money than they are today with these features. They cost a lot more. So just keep that in mind. James is on the nose. All right. Yeah. Colin asked, fanning out, I meant Google, when you're searching for one query, they are assessing that query and then they're searching for 5 or 6 up to 20 more queries behind the scenes. Then they're building a candidate list. Then they are using that to synthesize the response. If you look up query fan out, you can see some information about that. Great question. All right. Awesome. James, that is the nose right there. That's the best thing you could think about right now is watch these outputs and see how the ads start pouring in.
Oh, Jeff, I love you too, man.
Thank you. All right. A question from Meredith. Big, hairy question, but certainly one that I've seen many, many times across different companies is the gating strategy, and how does this impact gating strategies?
I mean, I can start on this one. My big thing is, we are in a process of really trying to kill all PDFs. Maybe that sounds a bit violent. To retire PDFs, to send them to a new place. No, I think that at this point anyway, AI can't see the stuff that you're hiding from it. And so if all of your best content is hidden, you're not getting the point of having that content on your website. And so is the goal just to farm for email addresses and people's data? Fine. but then own that and own the fact that then the AI won't know your best, most proprietary information. You think about what you're gating. Hopefully it's high value content. Hopefully you're not one of those people gating garbage. Maybe some people still do. That's okay. No judgment. A little judgment. But if your best content is something that Google and the AIs can't read, you're kind of just destroying your own capability for ranking. So I take very much a web first approach. I want everything crawlable. I want everything visible. I know James talked about that. I know Jeff talked about that. I mean, I think the point here is that, if you're hiding something in a PDF, it's just not visible. And so I understand salespeople want to be able to send out something after this webinar, I'm sure you'll get a PDF or some sort of beautifully designed document attached to an email. I think there is still a place for those, but I would say almost like across the board, replicate that on your web in some way, shape, or form. So what I often do is I have like a long form guide that's fully visible on the website, so someone can read the whole guide on a web page if they want. And then there's a beautifully designed PDF version that they can download if they want to see it separately on their screen, when they're offline. So that's kind of how I approach it is, making sure that I break down all the gates and stop hiding my best content from these crawlers.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting. So I don't know if anybody here, like sort of the Cloudflare announcement, they kind of host apparently a huge chunk of the enterprise websites. They announced recently, last week, that they're going to start blocking AI crawlers, right? And so that I've had a lot of inbound inquiries from their customers saying, well, what does this mean exactly to this point for our AI strategy, right? And there's a lot of things still to be resolved, but one thing for sure is you're going to have to use AI blocking and accessing your content being accessible to the broader ether in a scalpel kind of way. You're going to have to certain pages, certain content that's going to be, you're going to block these crawlers or you're going to make accessible. And essentially what we're going to be as brands is we're going to take a leaf out of the publisher and media book is we want to release enough content to make our audience hungry, but not enough to satisfy them before they've actually activated on what we want them to activate. And so, we could probably spend another half an hour on that topic is what does this mean for our gated content? But those are some of the high levels.
Yeah, I'll just highlight and answer a few questions that rolled in. PDFs need to be accessible. They need to be OCR, and they need to be accessible to be fully consumable. So yes, PDFs sometimes are not. Then they can also have attributes around them. So
tag them. You need to tag them. Yep.
In the PDF metadata. And then as far as a tactic goes, that's just one PDF, but it's not stopping you from having a lot of ways to access it, right? So what pages could you create? Maybe you create a separate page for each of your target personas, and they all go to the same PDF, right? So it's a many to one. Repurposing has always been key strategy to winning with gated content. And I spent the first 15 years of my career generating leads for PDFs at Knowledge Storm and Tech Target. So just OCR, object character readable. Basically, can the systems read the text in your images? Those types of things. Make sure if you've got lots of PDFs, it's an amazing. Think of it as you have a bank, and you can really turn that into a machine. It's a wallet with money inside. So, Greg, you got good stuff you can do. Cool. The optical character recognition. There you go. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. Well, along the same line of content, we do have another question here. Speaking of formats and PDFs, is there more or less optimized content types for AI? So you've got, we were just talking about PDFs, but images, videos, charts, text, so whatnot.
AI loves a chart. A table. I will say that all day, every day. I look at what it outputs. It loves to give me a table. It loves to read a table. I feel like AI loves a table. I do think, there's a lot more nuance to this, like Jeff was saying, around PDFs. But for me, fighting the good fight to make sure every PDF has all the things it needs to have to be accessible, sometimes it's just more helpful to just make sure that it's fully readable on the website. having a standard web page. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well. And then one thing I just want to put out here, this isn't exactly the question asked, but I think it's tangentially connected, is like, I think a lot of what has happened is that where you would characterize these things in the funnel has changed. So like it used to be like glossary or definitional websites were top of the funnel, infographics and video is top of the funnel. And then like, bigger, richer documents or charts or, tables, that's more bottom of the funnel, customer quotes, that's more bottom of the funnel. I feel like with AI and what I'm seeing in our pipeline metrics and where revenue is coming from is actually that a lot of those things have shifted, that once people know about you, know about your brand, they still can consume that content that you previously considered top of the funnel, but now as more like bottom of the funnel. At least that's what I'm seeing. Like glossary, which for us was always very top of the funnel, is now popping up at the bottom of the funnel, like right before closed won, as like a big part of the customer journey. Whereas in the past, that wasn't how we modeled it at all.
You got to make sure if you have hidden text or expanders, that chunk of text could be cited, and then someone clicks on your citation and they go to a blank part of your site. So those types of things, certainly make sure the way that they can be accessed is going to be key. And also AI loves clarity. So use natural language processing, use your LLM that you like to use to your advantage. Analyze your text. Is this clear? What passages, how would you chunk this page? Make sure that the chunks are what you want the chunks to be, or else just you got to modify those and make sure. That's why AI loves those easy to understand correlations of text chunks. So make sure that you're not writing so whimsically that you can't figure out what you mean.
So let me just I know we're kind of running out of time, but just make a quick plug for this concept in that, remember like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, sorry, I might be dating myself. I probably can go back further than that. But when customer data was like a super important thing, suddenly we realized it was a strategic asset. We couldn't just like give it away. You couldn't just take it. We had to have this whole enterprise process around it, and it delivered real value. Well, content's going through that same phase at the moment. The reason why these questions are now so pressing, because we suddenly realize that content is a strategic asset. And then when we come together around as a business around create a strategy around it, it can deliver real differentiation to our business. So suddenly it's important that content is discoverable. Suddenly it's important we have the right content. Suddenly it's important that we expose it in the way that we want. And that's going to require a strategy driven by folks like the CMO all the way down to the folks that create the content and deliver it. And so that, ultimately we need a process that sits on top of that. And that's where we're heading. Sorry, I needed to get that out, Lynn, but yeah.
Yeah, and that was, that was actually my last question with the 2 minutes left is what one takeaway, one action should the audience walk away with?
Did I just say mine? I mean, so for me, it's a strategic initiative, which we are still kind of formulating, and it's going to be quite mature, but firms that get that right and get it right at scale it's not going to just affect our top and bottom and mid funnel, whatever. It's going to affect our entire business and generate real value. Anyway.
Zoe?
I'll say my one thing is I'm stealing Jeff's line about if it's off brand, it's off topic, or as bad as being off topic. I think your brand voice, the way you convey meaning, is unique to you, and don't let that. I mean, use AI. I love using AI in all sorts of ways around the content creation journey, but keep everything true to your voice, your authentic humanity. Make sure that you're actually writing and reading the words that you put out. It's absolutely vital to sound like yourself in your humanness, but also in your brand.
Specifically, and I'm super tactical, make sure you break up the queries that you're analyzing by intent, and then by an understanding of whether the search engines and the LLMs are delivering a factoid or a synthesized response. If you smush those together and you monitor visibility there, totally not actionable. So make sure you know whether the outcomes of these pages are a factoid, capital of New Jersey, or is a synthesized response where you can provide unique diversity of the perspective and unique value. That will give you an upper hand against your competition, who is just looking at big buckets of words. So that's my number one tip.
Thank you. Thank you, Zoe, James, and Jeff, for your valuable insights today. Thank you, everyone, for joining this webcast. We hope you're walking away with clear ideas to navigate the future of SEO in this AI era. And of course, keep an eye out for the recording and the slides in your inbox next. With that, thanks, everyone. Have a great
Thanks,
day.
everyone. And feel free to reach out with more questions.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.